Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at a collection of devices I've gotten recently, those being all these here. Previously, I was calling that series my phone buyback series. However, it's kind of gotten to the point with me where I'm not buying back phones that I once had anymore. I'm kind of just buying whatever looked nice and whatever I wanted. It just happened to come across and decided to purchase it. So we're kind of back to just accumulating devices into the collection, having all sorts of things, and that's what we're going to go over today. Devices that I haven't otherwise made videos on and I have now in my collection. So some of these I have purchased, some were given to me, and then some of these I actually got from EWaste Recycling. Yes, you heard me say that correct. You guys know exactly what store I'm talking about, my longtime viewers at least. I did go back, and we're going to be going over some of the devices I found today. So yeah, let's get right into it. So starting off here, this is not a bin find. This is one we're just going to get out of the way really quick. This is a iPod Touch 4th generation, 8GB, as you can see there. This device unfortunately does not work. It was given to me, and unfortunately it's been sitting dead so long it didn't work anymore. The person who gave it to me just kind of happened to come across it and was like, here, you can have this, I don't want it anymore, and it unfortunately does not work. He thinks it's been sitting dead for like 7 or so years, so that would explain why this thing is completely cooked. The battery in it's completely dead. It doesn't show any signs of life, doesn't heat up when plugged into a charger or anything. So kind of a loss, but I mean, I have an iPod Touch 4th generation, so this one's probably just going to get sold in like a parts lot or something like that. But with that out of the way, now let's get into the phone bin finds. All of these devices here. These two were on a separate occasion, and then these 4 I got all on the same day. So we're going to start off here with the arguably worst one. This is a Samsung Galaxy Nexus. It is a Verizon model. This phone is also a 32GB on Android 4.2.2. It works perfectly fine. The only issue was when I got it, it was boot looping on the low battery screen. I'm assuming just because, again, just like the iPod, this has been sitting dead for so long. However, what I used was my auxiliary, I guess you can call it, battery charger. You basically you can pop off the cover here, like all Android phones, take out the battery, and then put it into like the universal charger by just connecting the battery prongs, and it'll charge it. And lo and behold, like it's worked for me many times in the past. It started charging, the battery at least. I let it charge on that for about an hour and a half, put the battery back in the phone, tried to boot it on, and it worked. This phone is now a working Galaxy Nexus. I guess I accidentally took out the battery, but yeah, this phone works perfectly fine. I am going to try to custom ROM it at some point. I can't get it recognized by my PC in fast boot for whatever reason. I'm assuming because it's a Verizon model, I can't really unlock the bootloader anyway. But at the same time, I kind of thought because it was a Nexus device, I would be able to, and it wouldn't have mattered. I don't know. I got to do more research into it. It's been a long time since I've had one of these. This is another device that I did have previously. So it's kind of nice to get another one of these again. But this one I found in EWaste, while the other one I bought. And this one's nice too because it's a 32 gig, while my previous one was only a 16. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's move on to the rest of the finds. So moving on here, this is a ZTE Z5G, or C, I can't remember which letter it is. It's got a weird name, but this phone works perfectly fine as well. It was passcode locked when I found it. It's a 16 gig on Android 7.1.1. I can show you guys the specs. Oh wait, no, I haven't even put any apps on this phone. I just set it up really quick. Reason being is this phone was passcode locked when I got it, so I had to Google Lock bypass it. I don't know why I wasted time on this phone, wasting time Google Lock bypassing it. This phone is also just going to get sold in a parts lot. I did have one of these back in the day, but honestly, if I want one of these very low-tier old ZTE phones, the Snapdragon 210s and a TFT 480p screen, I'd just get a Maven 3 because I have more attachment, per se, to those. So this phone, I don't really care about. I mean, it works perfectly fine now that it's been bypassed, but nothing really to say about this. It's just a generic old ZTE phone. So now we're going to move on to another budget phone. This here is, I actually don't know. I think it's a Alcatel A1 is the designation for the Alcatel branded ones. I'm not sure about the AT&T carrier specifically. It might be called something different. However, I know this as the TCL LX. You may remember I unboxed one of those back in the day as well on my channel. And it, at the time, was a really cool phone because this was one of the first budget phones with a taller aspect ratio screen. I'm not entirely sure what ratio that is, if it's 18:9 or what. However, it was one of the first phones to have that, albeit still a TFT screen. And it was also one of the first budget phones to be running Android 8.1, which at the time, the main thing you'd see was Android 6 and mainly Android 7.1.1 on budget phones. This was the first one to come out and actually have just Android 8 out of the box, which was kind of cool. They were okay phones back in the day. They weren't great by any means. They are kind of hindered by the Snapdragon 210, which is one of the few Snapdragon processors you will hear me complain about, along with the 808 mentioned by one of my friends to me when I said that in a previous video. But yeah, it won't even show. Oh, well, interestingly, this is a MediaTek processor in this one. So I guess I didn't do enough research about this phone. I guess this one is maybe slightly different than the TCL LX. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop into settings here and I'm going to find my cell phone, my iPhone, and I'm going to look at the model number on this. I'm just going to find out what phone this is and come right back. So it appears this phone is called the Alcatel Ideal Extra. Okay, but so this phone, it has a MediaTek processor. I genuinely cannot remember if the TCL LX was a Snapdragon 210 or a MediaTek processor. Could have sworn it was a Snapdragon 210, but I guess I could be wrong. But yeah, coming in here, I tried looking up what the actual name of this processor was, but I think it is just the MT67339. So I'm not sure what processor that is specifically, but I mean, besides that, still like 480p screen, 16 gigs of storage, 2 gigs of RAM. Wasn't bad back in the day. That was when phones started getting 2 gigs of RAM, even in their lowest configurations, which is nice. But either way, nothing really to write home about it. I am going to keep this one, but that's nothing special. And moving on here, this is a Cricket Icon 5. This phone, unfortunately, is cracked and Google locked. Really not much to say about this. Not really much to say about this device. It's a Helio A22 budget unbranded Cricket phone. You know, my favorite processor and everything. But yeah, there's really not much to say about this phone. It is Google locked and cracked. Kind of wish I could bypass it just to take a peek at it and play around with it, but I unfortunately can't. The dial 112 bypass doesn't work anymore. The in a few other ones I tried don't. The talkback one doesn't work. Coming in here into the owner settings, you can't do that either because you can't open personal safety. It's on a weird version of Android that these appear to not typically come on. It just might be a weird update for this phone that most of them didn't get updated to. I don't know. But either way, it's made it to where I cannot bypass this. If you guys know any methods for these unbranded Cricket devices or unbranded phones in general, please let me know. Because I, again, would like to bypass this because right now I'm just going to sell it again with the other ones in a part slot. So yeah, not really much to say about that. Moving on here, this is a iPhone 6. It is a 16 gig, I believe, from what I saw on the IMEI checker. But this phone is water damaged and FMI on. So unfortunately, there's really not much to this phone either. I don't know if it'll do it right now. Now it looks like it died again, but it does come on. It does vibrate when you plug it into a charger and flick the vibration thingy, obviously, the toggle switch. However, the screen's dead. When you open the phone, all the like corrosion and rust is concentrated to this area, which is where the screen cables are. So unfortunately, the screen's fried. I don't know if it's the actual connections on the motherboard, but either way, the screen does not work, and that's unfortunate. But oh well, it's just a 6. So moving on here to this iPhone 11. This phone is absolutely obliterated. It does work. It did turn on. However, because this is a newer iPhone and it is FMI on, it was locked with a passcode. So I unplugged the battery on this thing because I'm not screwing around with these newer iPhones and Find My being able to track the phone when it's shut down and everything. That is a good piece of advice if you guys also go to EWaste bins. I would not mess around with these newer iPhones if you can tell they're IMEI on before even turning it on by searching the IMEI, or if it comes on it as a passcode. Don't screw around with them because, again, they can be tracked shut off as long as it can connect to a nearby iPhone. They're kind of sketchy. It's great for people who main iPhones like myself, but it's not great if you look in phone bins like I do. But yeah, there's not really much anything to say about this phone. Again, it did turn on, the screen did work. The touch was a little screwy because, I mean, look at the thing, it's a banana. But yeah, it does work fine for the most part, but again, it's FMI on, so not much I can really do with this besides sell it in that part slot. So now we're going to move on to some phones that are not phone bin finds, and ones that I actually have spent money on. So let's get into these bottom row ones here. So starting off with these three here, these two you may recognize and wonder why I'm showing these again. These are not the same devices I got in that 5 phones for $40 part slot. These are two separate ones because I repurchased one of those lots, the third one I've bought in now. And unfortunately, because I purchased the last one the seller had listed, I kind of just got the same things and kind of some garbage. That's being specifically this phone. This is, I think it's a T-Mobile Rebel 1, not Rebel Plus or whatever they were called, just the normal one, and you can tell it's obliterated. This phone is completely dead as well. It does absolutely nothing. This was put in a Alcatel or TCL A2 box, I believe, the previous iteration of that phone. So I was excited. I got to the box. I was like, oh, yay, I have the older version of that. That's kind of what I wanted from this lot. Open the box, and it looks like the customer who originally returned that phone, which is the reason the eBay seller had it, scammed Walmart or whatever, and okay, now the phone's vibrating, but scammed Walmart or whatever when they returned the TCL A2 and threw this piece of crap broken phone in the box. So this is another phone that's getting put in that part slot. I opened this up and was kind of angry, actually, because I wanted a TCL A2 as a reference point to this phone. But you win some, you lose some. It happens. So now we're going to move on to the two other phones here that were in that lot and do actually work. I got another one of these TCL A3s. This one was brand new in the box. And this one I've decided instead of selling, because these are actually kind of decent little phones, probably, again, the best TFT screen I've ever seen. This background does not give a good representation of that, but they are genuinely good TFT screens. They're 720p. They look nice. The colors aren't all washed out. Same with the viewing angles. It's not a bad screen. But I've been saying for a while now, but decent-ish Android phone that could just be separate from my collection, and I wouldn't care about, just toss around, just leave the screen on for hours if I have to, whatever phone. Now that I have two of these, I don't feel guilty about doing that to the only one I have. So this one is just going to kind of be I need it for purposes that I wouldn't subject another phone to phone. Yeah, that's really all I'll say about this one. Move on to the last phone of the lot I bought. I did also get a flip phone, however, I'm not even going to show that in this video. I mean, it's a flip phone. I don't really care about those. But this here is another one of the Moto G Go's. This phone, it is virtually the same as the one I got before. However, this one came with no accessories or anything. And it also has a wonky charging port. There is use or signs of use on it. There's that dent there. But I'm assuming this phone was returned to the store or whatever because the charging port was wonky. The phone does work perfectly fine. It wasn't Google locked like the previous one I got. However, you just kind of have to hold the charger up slightly. You don't have to put a lot of force on it. You can literally just elevate the charger and just sit it on a table like that and it'll charge fine, but it's just a kind of weird quirk of this phone. I don't need two of these, so I'm actually going to be giving this one to one of my friends. He, like me, has been looking for some newer Android phones to play around with, and I mean, this phone runs Android 11 Go. I don't think he's experienced a Go phone either, so it'll be a nice little thing to play around with for him, because he, in general, just like me, has been looking for some newer Android phones to play around with, because he wasn't sure what newer Android versions were like. But yeah, I'm just going to give this phone to him, because realistically, if I were to sell this with a bad charging port, I'm going to get, what, like 10, 15 bucks on Mercari, max, frankly. So I just feel better about just giving it to him, because I, again, have two of these, and I don't need two phones that I don't really care about and just throw around. That's what this is for. So yeah, I don't really want to have duplicate phones unless there's something different about them. And these ones have nothing different. They're both Android 11 Go, octa-core Helio G25s. I mean, they are good phones. I do think they're pretty decent phones. Better than the Moto G Pure, which is the track phone version, which is not an Android Go phone. But those are actually slowed down quite a bit because they're not Go phones. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I'm going to be giving this phone to him as a nice little present. And yeah. So with that out of the way, we're going to move on to some phones that I have just bought at stores, and then one that I bought for my own personal use. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at another device I purchased for my personal use really quickly. This here is a Samsung Galaxy Tab S4. You can see it as a Verizon model. It is carrier branded because it has cellular connectivity. I did have a SIM card in this at one point, but The reason for purchasing this for me is because I, for a while, have also been looking for a newer Android tablet to play around with because, again, I had not experienced what a newer Android tablet was like. I had plenty of Kindles back in the day, which, I mean, that's kind of Android. But I wanted to just check one of these out because I use an iPad mini quite frequently, and I wanted something slightly bigger to watch some YouTube content on and stuff. And I mean, this tablet has a 1440p screen. It has quad speakers, 2 up there, 2 down there. It's a pretty nice watching experience. I mean, it is slightly hindered because of its age. This tablet has a Snapdragon 835, like I said. It is running Android 10. That is the last update it got. But I mean, besides that, it still holds up really well today. I mean, 64 gigs of storage, 64 gigs of RAM. It's not bad. I mean, budget phones have that now, but at the same time, for running Android 10 and for what I'm using it for, just for media consumption, it does perfectly fine. You can still get pretty much every app you could hope for on Android 10, and I haven't run into any issues with compatibility, really. I would like to be able to ROM this thing and get it on like Android 14 or something, but right now, for what I use it for my light usage, it does perfectly fine. I mean, the Snapdragon 835 is still comparable nowadays. It does pretty well. It still has great GPU performance, so that does help a lot. I'd still say it's better than a lot of the new budget phone processors for that aspect. And yeah, not really much else to say about this. I paid like $60 for it on eBay, used obviously, but it's been a really nice little device to play around with. Well, not little, but it's been a really nice media device. I have been using it when I'm just screwing around with it at my desk or something, and I just prop it up here and watch YouTube. I do have a case for it. I can show you here. It's just some generic one I got off of Amazon. But yeah, overall, it's been a nice little experience, and I think Android tablets have come a long way, even especially from this one. But this is a great little device I've just been using for media consumption. And I mean, nothing really beats my iPad, but this has been a great experience. Now let's take a peek at those phones I've bought. So this starting off here, this is a HMD Vibe. I bought this phone new on not clearance. It was just a sale price at Walmart for $29. This phone obviously works great. It's brand new. It is a 64 gig on Android 14. I believe this was Straight Talk branded. I can't remember. I have the box, but I didn't make an unboxing video of this. I just wanted this phone as a reference point to some of the other budget phones I bought recently. I said in a previous video, I thought this phone was very similar to the Moto G Play 2024. And it is. It uses the exact same 90 Hz screen panel, and it's very nice, very smooth. It uses the same Snapdragon 680 processor. Just pop it in here, as you can see. Snapdragon 680. Not a bad chipset at all. It is 6 nanometers. The only difference really is this phone has 3 gigs of RAM compared to the 4 in the Motorola. You do notice that. This phone does not really like multitasking at all. But besides that, I mean, it's a pretty decent little device. The cameras aren't great. The speaker and vibration motor aren't either. But I mean, $29 phone. What else can I say? The only thing I will mention if you guys do decide to pick one of these up, make sure when you get it to go into settings and actually enable 120 hertz or 90 hertz, sorry, under screen refresh rate, adaptive, because the standard 60 hertz, it is just, I mean, you can't really tell on camera, but it really does not look good. The animations are really glitchy, especially, oh, that wasn't a good example. Let me see if I launch a new app. Of course, you can't really tell that great on camera, but the animations are so much worse compared to when you go to 90 hertz. And I mean, that's not something I typically notice on Android phones. I don't know if it's for some reason this phone, it had some weirdness with the animation speed and stuff, but either way, enable 90 hertz and that problem goes away. Only other thing to note with this phone, I've mentioned before, HMD is the brand that licenses out Nokia devices, Nokia Android devices. So if you have a modern Nokia phone that runs Android, it is actually an HMD device. I own quite a few of those phones, and they're quite nice. However, it seems like HMD, I guess, is now branching out, making their own phones. But overall, it's really not a bad device. It is, again, hindered by the 1 less gig of RAM than the Moto G Play, but yeah, it's just a nice reference point to have. Moving on here, this is a Moto G 5G 2022, and there's a little bit of a backstory on this thing. I bought one of these, and also my friend Liam bought one of these. Shout out to him. This phone, we paid $11 for. $11, brand new in box, and works perfect. It's a brand new phone. They're both AT&T prepaid devices. Let me just pull up the eBay listing here. And it is a 64 gig running Android 12. I unfortunately could not get it to update past Android 12. I don't know if it's just because it's not activated or what. But so just showing you here the eBay listing, we paid $10.35 for this phone. But interestingly, when you go into the listing, you can see it's now listed for $103.95. I don't know what happened there, if the seller messed up and put the wrong price in, but luckily me and Liam were able to buy one of these before they adjusted it. So we each got a brand new Moto G 2022 5G for $10, which is an insane deal. I thought it was a scam. I mean, we both thought it was a scam. We just kind of did it saying, hey, if it's a scam, we're out $10, whatever. But this is actually a fantastic phone. It's really nice, especially on Android 12. It's very fast. These were like $400 when they came out, so I guess it better be nice. But it has a MediaTek Dimensity 700. I have noticed the Dimensity processors are actually quite good chipsets. They are pretty well optimized. Not as well as Snapdragon chipsets in my experience, but they seem to be pretty good chipsets. I've played around with quite a lot of them now. Besides that, this is the same screen as the HMD here and all the other Moto G phones. It's the same 90Hz 720p screen panel, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. Overall, especially for the time, this was a pretty decent budget device, albeit kind of a high price. I think the 50 megapixel camera on this phone is actually better at doing image processing than some of the newer phones that use the same sensor. But overall, yeah, $10 Moto G 5G. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. It's a nice comparison point to my Moto G 5G 2024, but overall, again, just a nice device to have, and I'm glad to have it in the collection. Adds on to my newer budget phones. And speaking of newer budget phones in my collection, we have this one. This was an impulse buy. When I went to Target with my friend and we looked in the EWaste bin, and we only came out with this and this that night. He got a Motorola phone, however, that was also broken. I crashed out, at least that's what I said in the store. I said, I'm crashing out, we haven't found anything. Went back to the phone section and bought whatever was on clearance, which happened to be this. This is a Moto G Stylus 2023, and now I have a Moto G 2021, or not 2021, sorry, 2022, 2023, and 2024. I have iteration from every year. This is obviously a little different because it's the Stylus compared to just the G5G. But overall, this phone is pretty nice. I think the processor in this is a little bit worse than this phone. It is a Helio G85, which is a little older with a 12 nanometer chipset or process, I don't know. But either way, kind of weird that was the case, that they used a slightly older processor in this one compared to the one from the previous year, but I digress. I mean, it is a pretty decent phone. It has 128 gigs of storage, which is nice, 4 gigs of RAM. Uses, again, the same screen, 720p, 90 hertz. And this phone is stuck on Android 13. Both of these supposedly were supposed to get an Android update, but I'm assuming because it's not activated on AT&T prepaid, it can't reach the update server for whatever reason. I don't know why they would do that, but I'm assuming they do because these phones will not update, and it's just kind of a coincidence. But either way, again, this is just another nice phone to have. I paid, I think it was like $40 for this phone, which is not an amazing deal, but I mean, again, I just kind of wanted to not walk away that night with not getting any phones that were good. So yeah, I bought this, and it's just another nice reference point to have in the collection. So moving on here to the last phone, this is a Google Pixel 6. I mentioned previously that I was retiring my Pixel 4, and I was going to buy a newer phone to replace it, and this is what I bought. I really liked my Pixel 4. I really liked the Google's version of Face ID that it had, even more than the now what they've replaced it with, which is the in-screen fingerprint scanner. I thought, especially coming from an iPhone, that was really nice to have. But anyway, I really like Google Pixels. I think they're the best Android skin. I mean, it's not as close to stock Android as it used to be, but I think it is a very nice skin on Android, and it overall just performs and looks really well. I prefer it over One UI and all that, so I decided when I wanted to replace my 4XL to stick to the Pixel lineup and go with a Pixel 6. I could have gotten something newer, something better, but I figured for now, I just wanted to get a used Pixel 6, not even the Pro, so I didn't want the curved screen, just for durability. Just something that would be a good replacement for my 4, and this is a fantastic replacement for my 4 XL. These phones pop in under the specs here. This is running Android 15. It has a Google Tensor chip, the first generation Google Tensor, but what that means is that gets me all of the like AI, Google Gemini stuff, I believe. I'm not sure, I haven't really played around with that yet, but it does get me some of like the cool like erasing things in the back of photos because it has that more powerful Tensor chip, which that's where my previous Pixel was starting to get kind of long in the tooth. The Snapdragon 855, while still a fantastic processor, it just wasn't new enough to get some of these newer features and stuff. But looking otherwise in here, this phone has a 1080p 90 hertz screen. Don't know what happened there. It has 8 gigs of memory. I don't know why so much is being used right now, but also 128 gigs of storage. And this just further proves my point that I don't need more than 128 gigs of storage. I could get away with 64 realistically. These phones have a dual lens setup on the camera, just like the 4XL, and then just the single camera up front. It has, I think it's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. That's what it's listed as, but it's a little bit lower. It does have a decent amount of charge cycles on it, but the battery still holds perfectly fine. It gets through a day of my use, and this phone, yeah, it's been my secondary phone for a while now. I have my Verizon SIM card in here, and it's been fantastic. I really like this phone. I plan on using it for like 2 or 3 years maybe, at which point I will probably upgrade to a Pixel 9. Preferably the 9 Pro in that case, because I feel the Pixel 9 series is the closest thing you can get to an iPhone on Android. I think it looks the most like an iPhone. The software is just the most clean and fluid. And overall, I just think Pixels are fantastic, and I'm happy to have another one. The 4XL has been retired, and it's back in my collection and my phone box or whatever. And yeah. So yeah, overall, this has been a really nice phone to play around with. Again, I'm going to use this thing for like 2 years probably, and then upgrade to a Pixel 9 or 10, whatever I feel. But I am going to continue to stick to the philosophy of buying 2-year-old or so Pixel phones. This one is obviously a little older than that, but I felt for now it was perfectly fine. We will eventually get to a point where I'm buying newer ones, keeping them for like 2 years and then trading up. But for now, this is a perfectly fine device for my use, and I continue to plan to enjoy it for a while. So with that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We've gone through all of these phones. Look out for more phone-related content in the future, more phone update series, and then also some more new phone reviews and stuff. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.